Bruno Lovaji, who is the original developer of iText, an innovative PDF library that has grown into a global software company. As an active member of the ISO and PDF communities, he has authored several books about iText, as well as worked with the community to continually improve PDF functionality. We have with us today Bruno Lovaji. Let's put our hands together and welcome him.
Thank you. So on the first slide, it says that I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of the iText Group, but at heart, I'm a developer. So in a way, I am you, and you are me. And we're developers, and in the next couple of days, we are going to see a glimpse of the future. But when we look at the future, it's always good to look back and look at what happened in the past. And some of the things that I will say, for the people who are younger than I, will be really strange, but it's good to know where we're coming from. And I'm going to look at the past from the perspective of PDF. So PDF, it all started in '91 when John Warnock from Adobe wrote the Camelot paper. What was the reason why he wrote the Camelot paper? Well, back then there were document formats, but the document format was always tied to software. So for instance, you had Word, and you could create a Word document, but when you sent it to another person, that other person also needed Word to open the document. If he didn't have Word, the document was just some bits and bytes. And so what John Warnock wanted to do is, he wanted to create a document format that could liberate the document from the application. So he based he said we have PostScript, but PostScript isn't a document format. PostScript is a programming language. But he said, we'll use that as a basis, and we'll create a document format and make sure that the document is portable, so you can see it on every platform, and that everyone can open and read that document. And that's when, so in the picture you see the carousel specification. That picture was taken at the Adobe Acrobat Museum in the headquarters of Adobe in San Jose. And it says carousel because that was the original name for Acrobat. But unfortunately, Adobe couldn't use carousel, and that's a blast from the past, because carousel was a product name owned by Kodak. And it was a carousel of the slides, the physical slides, the diapositives. When I was a kid and we went on vacation, we came back with a lot of diapositives, and then we had a projector and we projected every dia on a screen. Nowadays, we don't really remember that slides were actually physical things in the past. So carousel was the product specification that was written in between '91 and '93. And then in '93, the first Acrobat product was released. And you had Acrobat Exchange to create documents, you had Acrobat Distiller, and you also had the Acrobat Reader. And the first version of Acrobat Reader wasn't free. You could buy a 50-pack for $2,500, but Adobe soon realized that this wouldn't work. So a really bold move was to give away Acrobat for free, up to the point that a couple of years ago, Acrobat had a 98% penetration rate. It was on every computer, and that made PDF really, really important, an important document format. Now, PDF had a really good value proposition. It could replace paper. So we could finally, when I was a kid, I watched BBC World, and they were talking about the paperless office, the paperless world, and I thought, well, computers are coming. I had my first computer in '82 at the age of 12, and I said, we'll do away with paper. But what I saw was, and I saw it with PDF too, with PDF we had a chance to go paperless, but the more IT was introduced, the more PDFs were produced, the more paper was wasted, the more paper was printed. And so paradox number one was the digital document format that could help us go paperless was used for printing. Now, how do you solve this? Well, now a personal story. I started working at Ghent University, a university in Belgium, in '98. And back then, they had a software, Clipper software, to enter grades for the students. And this software could print grade reports, could print deliberation lists, all kinds of student lists. And this application could only print to an HP printer, and it couldn't even be a network printer. So what I promised was, I'm going to give you PDF, because if you create PDF, then you no longer have to print, then you no longer are dependent of a DOS environment where that was the only environment where the Clipper application worked on. And I said, well, PDF exists since '93, and I was a Java programmer. Java exists since '95. There must be a PDF library that can create PDFs on the server. Nowadays, this is a commodity. Creating PDF on the server, everybody is doing that. But back in '98, I was faced with a promise that I thought I couldn't keep, because I had promised PDF on the server, and I didn't find any software that was able to do that. So I wrote my first PDF library in 6 weeks, and this is important for you guys. I didn't know back in '98 that 18 years later I would stand in India, a guy from Belgium, a simple developer, talking to an audience of hundreds of people. But that was what I meant when I said, you are me. You can be me. In 10 years, you can be a speaker in Belgium, for instance. But so I wrote my first library in '98 in 6 weeks, and I really hated PDF. I read the spec, and back then it was still feasible, because the spec was like 612 pages, and you could do that. But I hated PDF because I didn't understand it. And in spite of not understanding it, I wrote a library anyway. And the problem with that library was that in the end, I was the only one who understood it. I was the only one on my project who could implement new features, who could fix bugs. And so if I made a document and something had to go 5 millimeters up and 5 millimeters right, then I was the only one who I was condemned to my own application. And I said, this isn't good. I have to rewrite it from scratch. But my employer said, why would you fix something that isn't broken? Why would you rewrite it from scratch if it works? We want you to do other stuff. So in my spare time, I said, well, I have to fix this. And I rewrote iText complete. I rewrote that library. It wasn't called iText. I rewrote it from scratch, because after 1 year of doing maintenance of my own software, I finally saw the light, and I started to love PDF, because PDF is a really cool technology once you start to know it. And there's a second paradox. With iText, I brought PDF from the desktop, because PDF was something that people created manually. Like every professor, he printed the document manually from a desktop application. I brought it to the server, which allowed high volume PDF production. And you could think the more PDFs you produce, the more PDFs will be printed, but the opposite happened. Today, there are banks who create PDFs with 100,000 of pages every day. These pages are never printed. They are just like a fixed photograph of the state of bank statements of their customers. And they keep them just for archiving purposes. And what I try to achieve with iText is, how can we add value? So you have a paper document, you have the digital document. If they have the same value, people are never going to switch from paper to digital. How do we add value? Well, PDF has evolved. The first version of the PDF specification was released in '93 by Adobe, but in 2007, Adobe brought the specification to AIM and said, look, you can have the copyright on condition that you make it an ISO standard. So PDF as a specification was released as an international standard in 2008, known as ISO 32000. That wasn't the first ISO standard. You had PDFX since 2001 and PDFA since 2005, but those standards were based on proprietary specifications from Adobe. For instance, PDFA was based on PDF 1.4, and the copyright of 1.4 was owned by Adobe. And for some governments, this was a problem. They wanted standards based on standards, not on proprietary specifications. And I'm going to highlight, this is an umbrella, PDF is an umbrella of standards. I'm going to highlight four subsets of PDF. You have PDF-A for archiving. Back in Belgium, I have a notary, and he says, I have to build another garage every 5 years just to store my paper documents. PDF-A solves this. And it's even better than paper, because paper, if his garage burns down, he loses his repository of documents. But PDFs, digital documents, can be stored redundantly on different data storage centers. And if one data storage center goes down, you still have copies on another data storage. I want to highlight PDF UA. UA stands for Universal Accessibility. And a PDF UA is a PDF that has specific structures that allow the document to be read out loud. So, for instance, if you have a list, a blind person who who tries to read the document will be informed, this is a list, list bullet 1, this is the content of list bullet 1. The same with tables. A blind person will be able to say, I want to go to the third column and the third row, what's there? The PDF, if it's a PDF UA, will know what to do. Another one that I want to highlight is, so that adds value over paper, because if you can maybe have some artificial intelligence that looks at a paper document and tries to find some structure, but it will be error prone. You can prevent this by making your PDF UA upfront. PADES is a digital signature standard. So I know that in some countries stamps are very important, or wet ink signatures are very important, but let's face it, stamps and wet ink signatures are easy to forge, whereas a digital signature, not just an image of a signature, but PKI-based signatures, they are much harder to forge. The last standard I want to highlight is Zugwert. Zugwert is a German standard. It's a standard for e-invoicing. And so in e-invoicing, you have two kind of religions. You have the people who say, we have to create PDFs, but then these PDFs, they are good for humans to consume, but a machine doesn't always know what is the total amount that I have to pay, what is the sales tax or the VAT. And then there's another religion that goes for XML. All invoices should be XML, because then machines can consume the invoice. But then again, if you're a human and you receive an XML invoice in your mailbox, how will you know how much you have to pay? It's harder to read for somebody who doesn't know XML. So Zugwert combines both worlds. It's a standard based on PDF A3 with an attachment that is an XML file based on the cross-industry invoice standard. And so if you receive an invoice in your mailbox, you can read it as a human, but you can send it to your bank, and your bank can extract the XML and has all the wiring information to process the invoice. So this is about adding value to documents so that people are inclined to move from paper to digital. Now, at iText, we are committed to evangelizing these standards. So I've written 2 books for Manning Publications, and more recently I write 3 ebooks. I have answered more than 1,600 questions on Stack Overflow in 40 months, so I'm an active member on Stack Overflow. And we participate to the ISO committee. So we do a lot of R&D, and R&D costs money. It's investments. And I have a third paradox. Open source isn't free. Anything that involves humans is never free. It can't be free. Software costs money. If you consume it, it costs money. If you create it, it costs money. And there is a cost of ownership and a cost of creation. And what happens if you just start using software without ever contributing back? Well, there's a slide here about Heartbleed, the Heartbleed disaster, where you saw that the creators of OpenSSL, they didn't have any revenue. Nobody was paying for OpenSSL. And so a disaster happened, so there was a security breach, and suddenly then IBM, Intel, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, and others, they pledged millions to these people. But why just these people? There are a lot of open source developers. And another personal story. Up until 2008, so I released iText for the first time in the year 2000. Up until 2008, there wasn't any iText company. I founded the iText company to kind of monetize my open source library in January 2008, but in February my son was diagnosed with cancer. So in 2008, I spent more time in the hospital than on my computer. Everything is fine with my son now, but back in those days, there was a developer who continuously mailed me and said, I have a problem with iText and you have to fix it. And I said, but I don't have the time because I'm at the hospital. And he said, yeah, but I have a deadline and I don't care about your son. You have to fix it. And I almost broke down because I wasn't making any money. I was working in very bad conditions without pay. And there's a word for such a situation. I won't say it out loud, but there's the dictionary there. There's a word for such a situation. And I said, something has to change. And so what changed? We started using open source as a business model. And we chose the AGPL. And the AGPL, for us, it meant the best of both worlds. Because a developer can use AGPL software for free, as long as he publishes his own software also for free. So you can make your name by making free software and distributing free software. But of course, the moment you start making money, the moment you get the attention of people and you can have an opportunity to make money, then if you use AGPL software, a commercial license is required. I won't go into all the details of the benefits of the commercial license, so you're released from the copyleft, for instance, but there's also a lot of support and a lot of books that are being written. Books and information that makes that you don't have to try stuff until it works, you don't have to Google the error message, and most of all, your code, it shouldn't be a copy-paste of code snippets taken from Stack Overflow. And this business model for us was very successful. This could be you in a couple of years. We won the Technology Fast 50 in 2014 in Belgium. We were the fastest growing technology company in our country in 2014. We are the national public champion in the European Business Awards, and we won a bronze American Business Award. And we don't rest on our laurels. We're here in India to present iText 7. Why India? Because one of the features that was asked for many years in iText was support for Hindi. And we tried to do this in the previous version of iText, but our font support wasn't fit to kind of make these ligatures. Because in Hindi you have two characters, and if they are in combination, you have to switch them or replace them by another character, and you have half characters. And for us Western guys, this is very hard. So we had to rewrite the complete font engine. And rewriting the complete font engine, we couldn't bolt this in the old version of iText because, yeah, fonts in PDFs, they are everywhere. So we started, just like I did in the year 2000, we started building iText anew from scratch. And we used a lot of lessons learned. So in 2015, it was iText 15th birthday. We used a lot of lessons learned to implement a new architecture, much more modular. So iText used to be that monolithic, giant 1.6 megabyte library. Now we have different modules, and we have plugins. For instance, one of the plugins is a plugin to support ligatures, to support Hindi. And it goes even broader. We are the PDF specialists, but we also were looking beyond PDF. And we joined forces with Hancom. Hancom is a South Korean vendor of productivity software, and they have a brand ThinkFree, and ThinkFree has an Office suite, so Office Neo, and they also offer a web Office suite. And so we joined forces in December 2015, and now we're starting to work on applications that marry Office documents and HTML5 and PDF. Because in spite of the fact that I'm a huge fan of PDF, there's more to documents than PDF. And so with this cooperation, we hope that we can serve the document market much better. We have some very well-known customers worldwide, but this slide you will recognize some Indian companies, and some like Hancom is South Korean. You have some Japanese companies, so we're also very present in Asia. If you want to know more, today in the afternoon we have a beginner session about PDF. So what are the basic things that you can do with PDF, with iText. And on Thursday we have a talk, PDF is dead, long live PDF. And there we dive into much deeper PDF knowledge. So we look closer at what is this PDFA about, what is this PDF UA about. So yeah, we harness the power of PDF. And what started as a private project, something that I wrote because my employer didn't give me the time to rewrite software that worked, has now grown to a company group with offices in the US, in Belgium, and in Singapore. Thank you. And I hope to see one of you at least in Belgium for a talk in a couple of years. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Bruno. I'm sure we owe a round of applause to all our three keynote speakers for those fantabulous sessions. Thank you. So with this, it's a coffee break. Of course, it's also time to take some nice selfies if you want to win great prizes. We'll see you back in our next session at 10:40. All the details are on page 6 and 7. It depends on what session you're planning to attend. We also have banners outside with details. 10:40 sharp, we will start with our next session. Thank you.